So once again, on the behalf of all Pune, it is indeed a great pleasure for me to welcome you all in this seventh episode of Gita Essence series, titled as "Show Me God." Uh, Seems an interesting title, right? Current world, if you ask someone, the first question he always sees, "Where's God? Okay, can you show me?" So to all those questions, we are getting the answer now in this sessions by our esteemed speaker, His Grace Madan Sundar. But while it's important to look forward for the session, it's really important to see what we have in our journey so far. So this Gita Essence series we started last week, right, on the same Saturday, same time, where we discussed and Prabhuji taught us how one doubt which Arjuna had after seeing his relatives started this whole Bhagavad Gita. And then the doubt comes as an opportunity for Arjuna. And we all know, right, what the outcome? Lord himself speak Bhagavad Gita for us. Then on the next day, we seen Inner Awakening, which is chapter 2. On the chapter 2, if you see, right, chapter 2 is nothing but whole summary of Bhagavad Gita. And if you remember the acronym for it, it's Gita. Right? So that Inner Awakening is the seed of all answers that living being looking at this current time. Then on the third day, we see the art of smart work. That art of smart work is nothing but how we can cope our day-to-day activities, how we can same time do all the activities which are currently doing without attaching to the results. And then on the fourth day, Prabhuji taught us about the transcendental knowledge. The transcendental knowledge is one key word which is going to be repeated in the Bhagavad Gita series. Even in the chapter 9, we're going to deep dive into the transcendental knowledge. So that transcendental knowledge opens the door of all the awakening and all the problems for which any human being, not only the human beings, right? Even any living soul is looking for. Then on the fifth day, we learn about inner peace, how inner peace can be achieved following the guidelines of the wisdom of Vedic literatures, especially the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. We talked about that. And secondly, inner peace is something which a person needs to be cultivated, right? It requires some practice to do. And of course, this Gita series is the same practice that we are trying at ourselves to have that inner peace. The next important, we learn what actual meditation is. And the next day, which is art of meditation, the last session that we had talks about the art of meditation, wherein we see what in true terms meditation means. It's not the modern yoga that everyone is doing, but it's one of those meditation and yoga ladder through which we can achieve all of the happiness that we're looking for. Now, if you see, right, the Bhagavad Gita can be divided into three parts, and so far we discussed only 1/3 of it. This next 6 day or upcoming week is really important. This is the week where it's important if you are human, it doesn't matter, right, if you are a male or female, it does not matter if you are devotee or non-devotee. It does not matter if you are based out of Pune or based out of London or based out of Bangalore, based out of Delhi or outside India. Because these 6 days, 6 chapters, we're going to talk about something which is important for all of us. Starting today, which is Show Me God. We learn about the God. Then tomorrow, we'll seek one question that we need to answer at the end of a journey. Then again, we'll touch base upon the devotional services. So going forward, we learn, right, these 6 chapters is nothing but all the devotional aspects that we're going to learn. We're going to learn like how the Lord is connected to us, how we connected as a human being or as a living being to the Lord. And I'm honestly, I'm really, exciting for all these 6 chapters to be commenced. And I think now Prabhuji also joined us. So without any further delay, I'll hand over to my esteemed speaker, His Grace Madan Sundar Prabhu, to continue on this journey. Chapter 7, again titled as Show Me God.
It was so nice hearing you. I don't know why they put me on spotlight.
It's a,
Thank you, Shikhar Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you for a very nice introduction. Next time we'll have Shikhar Prabhu also join along with me to give a Gita session. He has heard it nicely and learned it very nicely. Thank you so much. Very happy. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us for the ongoing series based on Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna. So we'll start with it now. I'll offer a prayer, then we'll begin with it. For those of us who know the prayer, they can recite along with me. In case if you don't, you can close your eyes, fold your palms, and take 3 deep breaths. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Pashatay Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gau Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Once again, we welcome you all our participants on the Zoom as well as on. So we are about to begin our journey on the second section of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita at large is divided into 3 sections, as Shikhar Prabhu was about to explain, and he started explaining about it. It has a total of 18 chapters and 700 verses. They're divided into 3 sections of 6 and 6 chapters. So we just finished the first 6 chapters where prime focus is of Karma Yoga. Well, I'll give you a quick overview of the 6 chapters in a short while. And then the next 6 chapter, beginning from chapter 7 from today onwards, now the focus is Bhakti Yoga. And I'll give you the gist of it before we begin with it. And then the last 6 chapters are called as Jnana Yoga, which we'll discuss when we come to that section. So this is how the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita are divided. In terms of divided means not being divided by the Lord when he spoke, but the acharyas classify the discussion in these 3. In other words, the discussion focuses on these key subject matters: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga, in that way. So let's take a quick recap of what we have discussed. This is not the details, it's just a one-line statement about each chapter, right? To be very concise. In chapter 2, who am I was discussed and elaborated, where we learned that we are a spirit soul. If we are a spirit soul, then who is our Supreme Father? Has to be somebody. And how do we build our relationship with our Supreme Father are the 2 obvious questions. So one of the questions, how do we build our relationship with the Supreme Father, was then answered in the 3rd chapter. How to connect with the Supreme Father? And for that, Karma Yoga. Yoga, what means to connect with the Lord. And through the means of senses, that is called Karma Yoga. Through the means of mind is called as Jnana Yoga. Through the means of intelligence is called as Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. Through the means of soul, which means with everything when we dedicate, that is called as Bhakti Yoga. So Karma Yoga as a stepping stone, the most feasible practical approach, was discussed, elaborated by Lord Shri Krishna in the 3rd chapter. Now coming to the next question, how do I build my relationship with the Supreme Father is known because I'm a spirit soul. But who is the Supreme Father? That has been elaborated in the chapter 4, where Lord Shri Krishna gives a pep talk about himself, where he says and describes the difference between the living entities and the Supreme Lord, that is him. And then he describes the reason for which he descends into the material world and concludes with Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti swarjuna. One who understands the divinity of my birth, my activities after giving up this body does not take birth again in this world. All right. So we are introduced to the subject matter of Supreme Lord. How do we build relationship with our Supreme Lord is already established. But who teaches us? How do we gain knowledge about the Supreme Father? That is also elaborated in the chapter 4, where Krishna recommends, if you are serious about spiritual life, if you're serious about your well-being, find a bona fide guru. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnana jnanina sattva darshana. Then we come to the 5th chapter, where cultivating spiritual life is the only means to attain eternal happiness and peace is being described, where we had discussed about inner peace. And how do you get that inner peace? Is through cultivating spiritual life. Why? Because Krishna declares very clearly, Yehi samsparsha jab hoga tukhayoni evate adi antavanta kanteya nate shuramate buddha. Material life and the happiness derived by making an endeavor in the material life is all gross and is all tasteless. Why? Adi antavanta kanteya. It has a beginning, it has an end. Nateshuramate Buddha, therefore the intelligent one does not relish in this temporary sense pleasure. So what do we do? How do we cultivate eternal happiness or eternal pleasure or eternal, inner peace, not eternal peace, inner peace, eternal happiness and eternal pleasure. And therefore, Lord Shri Krishna says, Bhoktaram yagnatapasam sarva loka maheshwaram Suhidam sarva bhutanam jnanatvamam shanti mrachati. Bhoktaram yagnatapasam, one who understands that I am the Supreme Lord and I am the true beneficiary, benefactor of all what is being done in this creation. One who understands that I am the Ishta Devta of all. I am the God of the gods. Bhoktaram yagnatapasam sarva loka maheshwaram. Suhida sarva bhutanam, one who understands I am the well-wisher of all living entities. Only such a person in such a state of consciousness can attain to inner peace. And how do we cultivate that state of consciousness? Through the process of cultivating spiritual knowledge and cultivating spiritual. Therein, another very important concept of 3 doers was discussed. And then on the 6th chapter, Krishna concludes, be a yogi. And there Lord Shri Krishna talks about the art of mind control, for which Lord Shri Krishna introduced the science of Ashtanga Yoga, which Arjuna rejected and Krishna agreed. Yes, asamshayam mahabhaho durnigram manochalam abhyasena kanteya vairagya chiktihate. Arjuna, whatever you have said about the nature of the mind, I totally agree. Abhyas and vairagya are the 2 easy means by which you can control the mind. Abhyas, practice, the do's, the niyamas, and vairagya, which means the don'ts. What are the don'ts? 4 aspects of simple life. Give up meat eating, intoxication, gambling, and illicit relationship. What to accept? A vegetarian diet, not only vegetarian diet, to practice offering bhoga to the Lord, vegetarian food, and accepting it as a prashadam. What to accept? Association of sadhus. What to accept? Read wisdom literatures like Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. What to accept or what to do? Chant Hare Krishna Mantra. If you do these 4 things, that is how we cultivate spiritual life. And that is a means of controlling the mind. And therefore, at the end of the 6th chapter, Lord Shri Krishna said, Yoginam api sarvesham mad gatenantaratmana. I have explained you many different kinds of yogis, Arjuna. I have explained you about karma yogi. I have explained about jnana yogi. I have explained you about hatha yogi, dhyana yogi, ashtanga yogi. And I have also explained you about bhakti yogi. Who is the best? Krishna gives his verdict. Yoginam api sarvesham mad gatenantaratmana. Shraddhavaya vajate mam same yuktatamo mataha. One who is always engaged in rendering devotional service unto me with faith. Shraddhavan bhajate, renders service with faith, not with sentiments. Again, I'll say that. Offer service with faith, not merely based on emotions and sentiments. Many times you go in temple, you see sometimes men and particularly women, but many times men also, they have big tears, tears rolling down their cheeks when they're in front of the altar of the deity. Maybe they are asking for forgiveness, whatever it is. But when they walk out of the place, they again, continue with their routine life of, where they continue to live unconscious of their relationship with the Supreme Lord. The question arises, Krishna wants us to render devotional service with faith. How do I cultivate? Don't worry, Krishna has given all the answers. That is how the chapter 7 begins. Where now Krishna will tell us how to cultivate faith. And that is a premise of the 7th to the 12th chapter, that Krishna would give us the knowledge by which our faith will become stronger. And that is what is being described next. And that brings us to the second section, which means chapter 7 to chapter 12, wherein we'll be discussing today from the chapters. And today's title of the session is Show Me God. Well, many times people challenge us, if you show me God, then I'll believe. We'll talk about it. How can we actually see? So let's begin with it. Let us define an acronym for this chapter first, where the acronym is HEAD. And let's take a look at the very first H for hearing, from verse number 1 to 3, where Lord Shri Krishna speaks about the importance of hearing. The very first thing, or very first verse Krishna says in the 7th chapter is, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Maya Saktamana Partha, Yogam Yunjan Madashraya, Asamshayam Samagram Yatha Gnasya Shrunu. If you want to render devotional service unto me, you want to take my shelter with devotion, with staunch, with determination, Arjuna, for that, first of all, you have to cultivate faith. That faith comes from hearing. You can know me in full, free from doubt, only if you hear about me. And now in the next chapters, Krishna would speak. Very few times Arjuna would ask one or two questions here and there. Otherwise, it's Krishna who's speaking to Arjuna, describing about himself, his opulences, so that the faith of a practitioner becomes strong. So let's begin our discussion. How to gain perfect knowledge about Supreme? This is one question that all of us should ask. All of us have some understanding about Lord. But actually, how do we gain perfect knowledge about the Supreme Lord? For an example, imagine right in front of you, there is an old building, which is 50-year-old. How do you find out who is the owner of that building? Maybe you ask your grandparents, they may tell you, or maybe you go to the registrar office, they may have some documents about it. What if that building is 200 years old? Now you totally depend on what they call as Lok Pramana. Whatever the neighborhood tells you, that we have heard from our great-great-grandfather, this building belonged to Nawab, so-and-so Nawab, or so-and-so XYZ person like that. Fine. What if the building is 1,000-year-old? How do you find out who is the owner of that building? It's becoming a little difficult. Yes, no, maybe, maybe not. It's good to a little bit interact. What do you think about it? How do you figure out who's the owner of a building which is 1,000-year-old? And let me put it this way. How do you find out the owner of a building which was constructed billions of years ago? How do you find out? How do you find who's the owner of it? So there is one such building which was constructed not hundreds, thousands, millions, in fact, billions and billions of years ago. According to modern science, this universe was created 13.8 billion years ago. Not the universe, planet Earth was created 13.8 billion years ago. However, where the scripture says was created at least 155 trillion years ago. Because right now, Brahma's 51st year is going on, which means of his life of 311 trillion years, 155 trillion years have been already completed. So how do you find out who is the owner of this universe? So what are the ways of acquiring knowledge? We'll take a look at it. I hope this question is making sense. For some, we can find an answer through pratyaksha, by seeing. For some, we can inquire. For something which is so old, how do we figure it out is what we're going to discuss now. So there are three ways of acquiring knowledge, what is called as pratyaksha, anuman, and shabda praman. Pratyaksha refers to based on aksh, based on eyes. What I see is what I believe. What I see is what I believe. Anuman refers to hypothesis. Maybe like this, maybe not like that. And Shabda Praman is through hearing. I have discussed the subject matter in detail in the previous series dealing with COVID crisis insights from Bhagavad Gita, or else what we call it Gita wisdom. So I'm not going to go in details of it. If in case somebody is interested to know more about it, they can ask the host, and they'll give you the link of that series, of that episode at least. So Pratyaksha Praman, which is based on sense perception, but the point is our senses are not perfect, isn't it? Our senses have 4 defects. Or in other words, not senses, we have 4 defects: tendency to commit mistakes, tendency to be illusions, imperfect senses, and cheating propensities. Do you all agree with that? Who is there who is not cheated? Who doesn't have the propensity to cheat at least? When are we not illusioned? To consider the self as a body itself is a evidence of being illusion. Imperfect senses, if there is a complete darkness, I cannot even see my own hand. What to speak about seeing God, who's beyond this creation like that? So that's a problem with Pratyaksha. Anuman Praman is all hypothesis. A classic example is Darwin's theory. Mr. Darwin, Richard Dawkins, giving a chance theory, which itself is a hypothesis, which is accepted as a fact, and or else Shabda Praman, which means by hearing. So if somebody wants to know who is his father, then how do you figure out who is his father? The means is you ask. You go and ask your mother, who is my father? And the mother will tell you. In other words, Shabda Praman, if it is preserved, as we discussed before about Guru Parampara, what Krishna spoke to Brahma, Brahma spoke to Narada, Narada spoke to Vyasa. If in this way it continues to go down the line, that means we'll have the correct knowledge about who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is a means of acquiring. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport of the first verse of 7th chapter, Prabhupada says, therefore, one has to learn from Krishna directly or from a pure devotee of Krishna. You got the point? Disciplic succession. And not from a non-devotee upstart puffed up with academic education. Not that somebody has to be double PhD in Sanskrit or must have done PhD in Vedic literature. Only he or she is qualified, not at all. Who is qualified? Who has heard from a bona fide authority. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Thus, Lord Shri Krishna begins this chapter by stressing the absolute necessity of hearing from bona fide or spiritual sources to understand the universal reality. And this is known as descending path of knowledge. In essence, if you want to know Krishna, the process begins with hearing. Hearing gives us knowledge. Knowledge gives us faith, and faith gives us remembrance. And that is a process of developing faith, knowledge, or knowing or understanding Lord Shri Krishna. And to give you an example, Prahlad Maharaj, he was within the womb of his mother when he heard about the glories of the Lord, and that's how he became a devotee of the Lord. Mother Rukmani had never met Lord Shri Krishna, only had heard about Lord Shri Krishna again from Narad Muni, and she became determined to only marry Lord Shri Krishna and no one else. And so does 50 years ago, almost 50 years, right? 65, almost more than 55 years effectively, or 56 years, you can say, just in the recent history. Similarly, just Prahlad heard about Krishna in the womb of his mother from Narad Muni. Rukmani heard from Narad Muni similarly. Similarly, the hippies heard from Srila Prabhupada, and they became sold out devotees of. How did they learn about Krishna? And despite being 50, 60 years in the movement, they're still going on. And now they have become the beacon of faith, beacon of light, guiding and bringing light and hope in the lives of so many people around the world. How did they realize Krishna? The process of hearing. And we have many, many examples like that. And that is how we understand God. So when Arjuna heard this, He pondered. He thought, my dear Lord, what if somebody challenges me? Show me God. What do I do? How do I answer? How many of you have faced this kind of a question? Or you have a question yourself? Yes, no, what's the output? How many of you have the face? How many have faced a challenge where people challenge you? Show me God. Or else you yourself have a doubt about it. Any responses? All right. So Lord Shri Krishna begins to speak about this, which marks the second section of the 7th chapter, where E stands for everywhere. In this section, Lord Shri Krishna explains that he is a source of both spiritual and material energies, and understanding this will enable one to see Krishna everywhere. Bhumirapo nalo vayu kammano buddhirevacha ahankara ityante bhinna prakritir ashtada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. Krishna says these are my separated energies or my 8 energies. Now, our body is made up of earth, water, fire, ether, and the subtle body is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. It all belongs to Lord Shri Krishna. Therefore, it is ought to be used in the service of the Krishna. And then in the next verse, Krishna says, besides this, there is another superior energy of mind, which is Krishna indicating to spirit soul. Krishna says, superior energy of mind, which comprises the living entities. Krishna is saying, jivas are also my energies, which are superior to matter, which is Krishna calling as infinite energy. So this spirit is manipulating the matter and thus creating so many temporary creations in the world. Like you have big complexes, cinema theaters, stadiums, and big buildings and whatnot. These are all being created by whom? The spirit, which is a superior in nature, manipulating the inferior energy to experience the sense of being the controller. Because that's the reason we came to this world, because we wanted to be the controller, create independently. And that's the reason we are here. And the material energy is given to us, play around with it. Just like a small child at a beach, sometimes when a small child sits next to the beach, they take a wet sand and they try to build a castle. And the child feels like, oh, this is my house, this is my new house. Then they become so attached to it. Suddenly a wave comes. And then the wave goes back. Along with that, all the dreams, the hopes, and attachments are washed away in the wave. And there's no more castle. So is our life in this world, where we put so much time and energy in building or manipulating or exploiting the material energy. We create something, but the wave of time gushes forward towards us and stuck us at a time when we were least prepared for it. And suddenly, with a fraction of a second, takes all our creation from. Vice versa is also true. Maybe the creation remains behind. We go away along with the wave. And I guess most of the time that happens, that is what is called as death, where the creation is left behind for somebody else to enjoy, and the person goes and he gets drowned into the ocean. So that's the point here, 5 gross and 3 subtle energy. That's what Krishna explained. So the first principle to understand God, not to understand God, to see God is, Krishna says, earth, water, fire, ether is my energy. Mind, intelligence, false ego is my energy. Jivatma is also my energy. Once we understand this, then we can see Krishna. Just like Srila Prabhupada was on a morning walk at San Francisco Beach, there was a beautiful sunrise. And one of the students said, Prabhupada, what a beautiful sunrise. Srila Prabhupada said, if sunrise is so beautiful, in other words, if painting is so beautiful, how much beautiful the painter must be. So Prabhupada didn't see the sunrise disconnected from the Supreme Personality of God. He saw Krishna's hand behind the sunrise, who orders sun to rise and set at a particular time of the day, every day, month after month, year after year. Isn't it too much for a chance happen by chance by chance, again and again? This is ridiculous to be like that. And this is what modern science put forward as a claim. It's all by chance. So once we understand this, Therefore, we can see Krishna everywhere. So first principle is unseen is proven by the seen. I can see earth, water, fire, ether. I can see the body. We can understand the mind, intelligence, the force ego of the person. Therefore, we can understand the Supreme Lord is there because these are the energies of the Lord. For an example, let's say you're a small child, your school has ended early, you go back home. And when you enter your home, you see on the dining table kept in your living room, on a dining table, you see your father's car key. When you see your father's car key, what comes into your mind? My father must be there, isn't it? When you see the father's car key, you don't see a car key. You see father's car key because I know this car key. This is the key of the car that belongs to my father. As soon as I see the car key, I remember my father. You have not seen the father. It is possible the father might have gone along with a friend to office and left a car behind. But as soon as the son or the daughter sees the car key, he remembers the father because he knows to whom this belongs. Similarly, once we understand to whom this whole creation belongs, then we can see God. And that is a principle of unseen is proven by the seen. Mataha parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya Vai sarvam idam protam sutre mani gana iva. 7th chapter, 7th verse, Krishna says, Arjuna, I am the shelter of all. There is no truth superior to me. The setting of the sun, the rising of the sun, the flow of the oxygen, the flow of the air, the cosmic traffic and everything. When you water a seed, the seed gets fructified. When a man leaves a semen in the womb of a mother, then there is a seed fructification happening and the child is born. All this is happening by whom? Krishna says, is all because of me. I am the basis of it. Under my direction, everything is happening. And then Krishna gives an analogy. Mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana. Just like Krishna says, like you see the neck beads here, Krishna says, I am like, if this whole creation is like a pearl necklace, then I am the thread, invisible thread, holding the pearl necklace together. Now, all of you, if you see this neck bead, all of you understand that these neck beads are not hanging by chance. There is a thread holding the neck bead. Therefore, Krishna uses an everyday analogy here and says, Arjuna, I am that thread. Although not visible, but know for sure, I am the thread holding the pearl necklace. So, second principle, how do we understand, or how not understand, how can we see God? The first principle was unseen is proven by the seen. When we see things which in relation to the Lord, then we remember the Lord. Now, cause and effect. Just like imagine you're sitting in a cricket stadium watching a cricket match. Sometimes match becomes very boring and sometimes the audience fall asleep once in a while. For example, let's say a test match and you've fallen asleep, you're dozing off. And suddenly there's a huge uproar in the stadium and everyone is standing on their feet and they're clapping and they're roaring. And suddenly you wake up and you look in the sky and there is a ball going flying out of the stadium. Now, when the ball is going flying out of the stadium, what would you think? That's an effect. What is the cause? A bowler must have got angry with the batsman. He must have thrown the ball out of the stadium because he's not able to bowl him out. Yes or no? Or maybe fielder got angry at the bowler for not bowling the batsman, so he threw the ball out only. Let's throw the ball away. Of course, the cricketer. Of course, the batsman, isn't it? Simple thing. So if there is an effect, there must be a cause for it. So let me ask this very simple. Satellite, which is put up into the orbit. And there is a space station, or there is a space ground station, or you can say ground station, where hundreds and thousands of scientists are operating and monitoring the movement of the satellite. Yes or no? I hope nobody has a doubt about it. Effect is the satellite. Cause is the man, the spirit, soul, sitting in a space station on the ground station, monitoring the satellite. Now, this is just one satellite, very small in size. Similarly, there are hundreds and thousands and millions of satellites in the universe. And one of that is planet Earth, which means a cosmic entity moving around in the space, which has a speed of 1,670 kilometers per hour. Its rotation speed, which is 60 times of that of a bullet. None of us feel even a fraction of experience of it. And if you want to see exactly, if you want to get some experience about it, then you should see the sunrise. how quickly sunrise happens. Within few minutes, the sun rises up to here. And then after that, you don't see the movement that well because that's a different subject matter because of the horizon and all that. But at least you can experience, you can understand how fast the earth is rotating. And of course, there is a movement of the sun also, because of which you're able to perceive a huge amount of distance being covered by the sun in a very, very short span of time. So that's the speed of the earth rotating. And then similarly, there's a speed of the revolution speed around the sun, which is said to be 100,000 kilometers per hour. So my question is, this is the effect where a cosmic entity is rotating and revolving like a satellite. So who is in control of this cosmic entity or a satellite? NASA? Is NASA managing it? I mean, no doubt about it. They can probably patent the movement of planet Earth also. Like they're bent on patenting all Ayurvedic techniques or all pranayama exercise and whatnot. So my question is, if you think it's not NASA, is there a God in control of things? Well, it seems very logical that yes, God must be in control of things. So why do people again and again say, show me God? There are so many effects in the nature with which we can understand there must be a supreme cause behind it. This is just one example of understanding the supreme cause. Yet people say, show me. Until I see from my naked eye. The point is, what can you see? As I mentioned before also, I have done my MTech, precisely MS, you call it in America. In electronics and computer engineering, I wasted my 6 years of life, never ever saw the electron in my life. I deserve, after wasting 6 years of life, to see at least once an electron. I never saw that. Why? Because you cannot see electron with your naked eye. Electron is seen on the cathode ray tube as a reflected element. And that is what is conjured as an electron. So if you cannot see so many things with your eyes, to say and to demand, show me God, and until I see with my own eyes, I will not believe, all the best. Continue to live your life as you wish to do. So, but those who are intelligent, they can certainly do two principles. Unseen is proven by the seen. And if there is an effect, there has to be cause. And that's the point about it. Moving forward, so in this section, Lord Shri Krishna talks about how I can be seen everywhere through these two principles. And this section teaches us some very important lessons. What is that? First, Lord and Jiva are not equal. Why? Because Krishna says, Jiva are my energies, superior energy. Second, Krishna says, not Krishna says, we learn, engage Lord's energy in his service, because we are a superior energy. And Maya or matter, not Maya, matter is an inferior energy. Whose energy? Your energy? Krishna's energy. So in whose service are you supposed to use that energy? Krishna's service. For example, company gives you a smartphone. So for what purpose it gives you a smartphone? To attend to office calls, to make office calls, not for your private business. Yes or no? And once you start using that facility for your private purpose or personal purpose, now, do you justify the action of the company to take the resource back from you? Yes or no? How many of you say it's justifiable by for the company to take the facility back from that person who is misusing the facility by not using in the service of the company but for his personal service? And therefore, from this we learn that matter is energy of the Lord. It should not be utilized for our purpose. It should be utilized in the service of the Lord. Otherwise, things will be taken away from us, sometimes forcefully, or sometimes by the will of providence or accident, whatever. And third, Krishna is the essence and cause of everything, because he's the cause of us, he's the cause of matter, thus he's the cause of everything. Matha parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. There is no truth superior to me, as Krishna have already explained. And after this, Arjuna began to ponder. He said, my dear Lord, if you are present everywhere, then why there is a wholesale denial of your existence? Isn't a valid question? Krishna said, I'm present everywhere. Then why there is a wholesale denial of your presence? And this brings us to the third section of 7th chapter, where A stands for accept and reject. And in this section, Lord Shri Krishna teaches that in this world, everyone is covered by his magic spell that is called as modes of material nature. Tribhir guna mayir bhavir Ebhi sarvam idam jagat mohitam na vijanati mamibhya param avyayam. Krishna says, every living entity is covered by my magic spell, what Krishna defines as modes of material nature. Just like, burqa, in certain religious custom, people wear burqa. It's very interesting. Before marriage, Dula wears a burqa. Not burqa, sorry. You know what they do? In many, in certain traditions, the man wears a pagadi, and ahead of pagadi, he has a tehra, but he has his face covered, right? Isn't it? Uh, I'm not saying anything. Before getting into it, you're covered by illusion. don't blame me for it, okay? I mean, I just was discussing this subject matter, so that point came. It's interesting. Krishna is saying, I have covered you. And before getting married, the man is also covered. Situation is covered anyway. I mean, the same with the ladies also true. Hare Krishna. That's a joke, by the way. All right, all right. What was I saying? So, just like a person is being covered, his face is covered by a veil. You cannot see clearly, isn't it? Like burqa, I was giving an example, or a veil, you call it. You cannot see clearly. And that is what Krishna is saying. Everyone's consciousness is covered by my energy, which is called as Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun, which colors our vision. And as our vision is colored, accordingly, we perceive the whole world. Somebody whose vision is colored by a mode of passion sees everyone greedy, competitive, lusty, envious. Why is he able to see everyone? Because he's experiencing those emotions under the influence of this mode of passion. Somebody who is colored, whose vision is colored by tamoguna. This discussion will happen in the 14th chapter in detail. We'll talk about in that chapter in a lot of details about it. I'm just giving a quick introduction to it. Somebody is covered by introduction. For him, darkness, laziness, inertia, sinful activities is what is the aim of life. However, somebody is covered by mode of goodness predominantly. For him to follow the Brahminical lifestyle, being good, God conscious, follow integrity, morality is what the importance of life is. So all this kind of people act differently depending on what veil or what mode is coloring their vision. And that is what Lord has explained. Until this veil is removed, we cannot see the Supreme Personality of God. Let me give a very simple example. Have you seen during the rain cloud, during the rainy season, when the rain cloud comes, you don't see the sun. That doesn't mean the sun has not risen up. Yes or no? If you're not able to see sun in the morning, it doesn't mean the sun has not risen. Sun has taken a Sunday break or half break or tea break and it disappeared. No, it's because your vision is covered by the cloud. Similarly, it's not the Lord is not there. It's not the Supreme Personality of God is not there. Our vision is covered over right now. And Krishna is saying here, I cover the vision of every living entity because of which they're not able to see. And that's the point. The three modes keep the conditioned soul forgetful of the self and the Supreme God. So question comes, how we get covered by material energy? When we come to this world, we get conditioned or covered over by the three modes of material nature. Why? Just like a prisoner, somebody who's a culprit is given a prison sentence, when he's sent to the prison house, his clothes are changed. So does it mean when Lord descends into this world, he also get covered over by the modes of material nature? Not at all. If the chief minister of the state visits the prison house to meet the prisoners, is he supposed to wear the prison dress? You know the answer. The same answer is for the Supreme. He's never covered. So Arjuna, when he heard about it, he really got frightened. He said, my dear Lord, how do we deal with this? How do we get rid of this veil? Lord Shri Krishna said, very easy. Take my shelter. Devhiyesh gunamai mamamaya durutyamami vai prapatyante mayametam tarantite. As you take shelter unto me, to that degree you get freed from this illusion. Just like you're driving your car in a rainy season and it's pouring very heavily. You might you all would have experienced, if you're sitting in a car at that point of time, the windshield becomes very foggy. At that time, the windshield, right? No, the windshield we call it? The front mirror. I'm sorry, I'm missing the word. Probably windshield it is. it becomes very foggy, and then you have to use that windpipe or whatever you call it, wiper, sorry, a wiper. You have to use the wiper to clean the mirror. To the degree the mirror gets cleaned, to that degree you're able to see ahead. Yes or no? Similarly, to the degree we're able to surrender to Lord, to that degree Lord takes away this Maya spell or this, and that is a point. In other words, accepting divine Krishna's divine system or spiritual culture is the means of getting freed from this illusion. It may be difficult on our own endeavor, but by Krishna's grace is all possible. Therefore, Lord Shri Krishna explains, Arjuna, I do not interfere in anyone's free will. And there are four kinds of people who do not surrender and surrender to me, but it all depends on their free will. So, four kinds of people who misuse their free will are being explained first. And Krishna says in verse number 15 to 90, he describes our four kinds of people who misuses their free will and four kinds of people who are trying to properly use their free will by taking my shelter. Who are these four kinds of people who misuse their free will? They are called as mudha, grossly foolish, hardworking asses. Purport is not needed. You understand as Gada very well. So, Gada holds a very, has a great reputation within the great philosophical teachers of India, or Vedic teachers. Whenever they would get angry at somebody, let's put it this way. How many times you were called Gada in your life by your mother or father? Gada kahin ka? Aaya na? Yes or no? So I don't need to give. I'm not speaking to American audience or Western audience where I need to explain, because they have an equal vision. They see every animal similarly. So Gada or Ghoda, unke liye koi antar nahi hai. Anyways, Hare Krishna. So you all understand the glories of S, so I don't need to explain. That's the point of it. They're hardworking. They never focus on what is important for them, what is important for their life. Second, Naradhama, the lowest of all, or the lowest of the human being, which means uncivilized people. These are the people who break all the regulated principles, literally living on the animalistic platform. Third, Maya Ahapratgyana, whose intelligence has been stolen. This refers to the scientific or the scientist community who misuses the God-given intelligence by proposing different kinds of theories, claiming that God does not exist, or else they produce more illusion by making this temporary life, attempting to make it more comfortable, by which our ignorance increases. That is Maya Prat Ajnana. Fourth is Asuram Bhavam Ashrita. These are the envious people who proclaim either themselves to be God or who reject the presence of God, or else they claim we are nothing but a bundle of chemical. There is no spirit soul. The Lord Shri Krishna had speak about four kinds of people who come and take shelter of the Lord. First, Chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukritano Arjuna artha. One who is distressed, who comes to take shelter of the Lord. Second, artho arthathi, arthi, who is desiring for wealth, and he comes and takes shelter of the Lord. Lord says he is also a pious soul. Third, Jigyasu, one who is inquisitive. Jigyasu, one who is curious and who wants to know why bad things happen to good people, why there is suffering, what happens after death, why did I took birth in such and such family, why I got this gender, and all those kind of questions. The person is thinking about the foundation of life. Who am I? Such a person is called Jigyasu. And the fourth, Jnani, who is in the search of absolute truth. So only those who are pious, not that every distressed person comes in the shelter of the Lord. Only pious people, if they become distressed, if they become curious, they become curious, and if they are desiring for wealth or they are searching for absolute, they come and take shelter of the Lord. If there is an impious, distressed person, impious person seeking for wealth, they would never come and take shelter of the Lord. And finally, Krishna concludes, gives the verdict about who is best among all these four people. Krishna says, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapatyate Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlava. Arjuna, the best among all is the jnani, but even for such a jnani, it may take hundreds and thousands of lifetimes before he can come to know that I am the Supreme Personality. Jnanavam Bahunam Vasudeva Samahatma Sudalava, and such a soul is very, very rare. It's a very important subject matter, so I'll give a one quick analogy and we'll ask a question through this analogy to all of you. Imagine you are the mother or the father of a family that has 7 sons. And my question is very simple, and I request all our audience to give an answer at the end of this short description that I'm about to give. Is who, according to you, would be your favorite child? Child 1, child 2, child 3, as I'm going to describe about. Is that okay? Is that exercise clear? Let's take a look. So you have a family of 7 sons, and your first son is obedient to you. And whatever responsibility, you're obedient to, the first son is obedient to parents, and parents have given him responsibility to take care of younger brother. That is the first son. Second son, troublemaker, selfish, and have given up on his parents. Third, fourth, and fifth son refers to the distressed. Fourth refers to one who is always looking for money, like college student. Or fifth refers to need for an answer. So such a person, such a son, comes to his parents whenever they're in trouble. Sixth son, his motive was to serve parents, but actually he was not trained or educated how actually to serve or respect the parents. And the seventh, his life was dedicated to serving the parents. So among these 7 sons, who would be the most dear to you? Of course, as a parents, you would love everyone, but yet there will be someone whom you'll be more attracted or attached to, isn't it? Although you would love and care for everyone, but who is among the 7 sons you would be most attached to? What is your answer? Anyone says my favorite would be second son? Is our YouTube audience the good amount of delay, right? So fine, I'll manage the YouTube audience. Oh, sorry, Zoom audience. What are they saying? Oh, you only have one choice, huh? There's no multiple choice, 1 and 7. Only choose one. So who are these personalities representing that we just gave an analogy? First son refers to Devatas, right? They're obedient to parents, and to take care of the younger ones the responsibility have been given to them. They provide our needs. Who is the second son? That refers to the 4 kinds of sinful people. Moodha, Naradhama, Maya, Pratagyana, Asram, Bhavam, Ashita. Who are this third, fourth, fifth, sixth son? That refers to those Artho, Athati, Jigyasu, and Jnani. So who is the seventh son? That is a pure devotee of the Lord. Now you understand why Krishna again and again says Bhakti is the highest. You yourself is attracted to somebody who is obedient to you, who loves you, care for you. And that reciprocal relationship is but natural. And Lord is also but naturally is disposed towards devotee. Although he is samoham sarva bhuteshu, equal to all, yet he gives attention to his pure devotees more. Now, we are coming to the end of this very, very important chapter where Arjuna began to think. What about others? You had been only speaking about yourself. What about Brahma, Shiva? They're also gods. What about them? You have not spoken anything about them. And now we come to the last section of our 7th chapter, where the title or the acronym ends with D for demigods, from verse number 20 to 30. I will take this 10, 11 shlokas in the form of a question answer. So we have written out questions. That is what we're going to discuss here, like that. All right. So before that, let me just give a quick overview of it. In this section, Lord Shri Krishna establishes monotheism. Monotheism is single God. And it distinguishes Devatas as being very powerful entities who are in charge of universal affairs, but in no way, no shape or form they are equal to the Supreme Lord. Such misunderstanding where we think everyone is same, in fact, some say we are God, you're also God, it just hinders our ability to re-establish our relationship with the Supreme Lord. And due to lack of this understanding, it leads to all kind of religious fanatism or conflict. So let's take a look. Very first question. Why doesn't everyone take shelter of God? Lord Shri Krishna explains, because of material desires, intelligence being lost, people are looking for quick material results. Therefore, I have appointed various administrative heads who they can easily approach and get them easily. So before they get their desire fulfilled, they have to serve them. And that is called the process of yajna, which Lord Shri Krishna described in 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that I have created a system of yajna of mutual dependency between devatas and the jivas. Jivas perform yajna for the pleasure of the devatas. Devata gets nourishment through that, and being indebted or being obliged to the jivas, they fulfill their desire, which is ultimately sanctioned by the Supreme Lord only. That is 7th chapter, 20th verse, where this is being described. Second question, why demigod worshippers are called less intelligent? Now, why? Because their fruits are limited and temporary. Just like Brahma had blessed Hiranyakashipu, when Brahma told Hiranyakashipu, you want to be eternal, but I am not eternal, although I have very long life. And ultimately, Hiranyakashipu died very soon after getting the benediction. What happened to the benedictions? All got wasted. Even if the avatars have to give benediction, those benedictions or the power to give benediction actually come from the Supreme Lord only. In ignorance of over Krishna's supremacy, because they don't understand who is actually the Supreme Father. And third, ultimately, the result will not lead back to Krishna, but to the planets of devatas, if a person worships devatas. Again, the planets of devatas are also temporary. So sometimes people say, not people say, sometimes people go to Pandits or certain Brahmanas to get their astrological chart done and all that. And sometimes these Pandits have their way of making their money where they say, oh ho, aha, बहुत खूबसूरत, भविष्य बहुत उज्जवल है, आप जैसा हाथ रेखा आज तक नहीं देखी. मैं बॉलीवुड की रेखा की बात नहीं कर, मैं ये रेखा की आप लोग के लिए, अरे ऐसी रेखा कभी नहीं देखी, हाथ इतना स्पेशल है, आपकी जन्मपत्री तो वाह वाह वाह, क्या कहना. तो पहले तो कहते हैं ना, झाड़ पे चढ़ा देना. सॉरी, आई बिकेम इन हिंदी बिकॉज इट साउंड मोर बेटर इन हिंदी. सो एज ए से इन हिंदी, झाड़ पे चढ़ा देना, फिर झाड़ को काट देना. So they'll first of all, make you go very high, saying that you're so special. You're literally like Lord Ram. If a father has brought his son, then say, your son is like a father and you're literally like Dashrath Maharaj. Who will not be happy to feel like my son is Ram and I am Dashrath Maharaj? And finally they'll say, everything is perfect. Only one problem. शनि की दशा चल रही, बस 10,000 रुपए दीजिए, शनि को भगाने के लिए मैं पूजा पाठ कर देता हूँ, सब ठीक हो जाएगा. So fine, these all rituals are given in the scriptures, no doubt about it, but we have to understand the science of it. This is all because of the karmic reactions. You cannot nullify karmic reaction by all these temporary processes. You can defer or delay it. So through this ritual, you can delay it, and that too also depend on the strength of the Brahmana. If he has that ability to chant and pronounce the mantras properly and to do that worship properly. So by that, considering the situation matches, he's able to defer or delay it. But when you get the reaction in future, which could be in this lifetime itself, most probably in this lifetime, you'll get it with compound interest, which will be far much more. That's the point. Third question, what is the difference between Jivatmas and Devatas? What's the difference between us and them? There's no difference. What's the difference between the chief minister and I? Or nothing. He's also a human being, we're also a human being. Of course, that way prime minister also, but I'm kind of trying to make an analogy in the sense, they are in tattva, in nature, they're one. But being more qualified, just like in a company, somebody becomes a software engineer at level 1 and somebody becomes a technical manager, isn't it? They might have got the same education, not, but depending on the qualification, they get position, and that's the point here. The commonalities are, they both are Jiva Tattvas, which means energy of the Lord. They both are within the purview of the material energy. They are also affected by goodness, passion, ignorance, and they're always dependent on the mercy of the Lord. All of you would have heard of hundreds and hundreds of stories how Indra would go to Brahma and Brahma would go to Vishnu asking for protection. Yes or no? Or sometimes Bhumi Devi going to Brahma and Brahma again going to Vishnu along with all the devatas to beg for protection. And like that, Lord will incarnate in this world in different occasions. Question number 4. What is the problem in approaching the devatas for material desires? There's no problem, but the fact is, the devatas cannot give anything to you independent of the Supreme Lord, because they're always dependent on the Lord. That's the point here. Second, when you worship the devatas, the result is material. You may get your desire fulfilled, but if you worship Krishna, you can get your desire fulfilled also, but the result is spiritual, which means you make an advancement in your spiritual life. That's the point here. There's no purification in worship of devatas. How does the Lord facilitate the worship of demigods? First, it empowers the devatas, which qualifies them to receive worship. Second, Lord himself instills faith in the heart of a practitioner so that he becomes more and more faithful to the worship of that particular devata. Next, what is the understanding of the pure devotee? How does a devotee of the Lord looks on the subject matter of devata or the Supreme Lord? A devotee of the Lord never goes to the devatas for any of his material needs. He's always dependent on the Supreme Lord and is satisfied with whatever Lord gives. He knows that everything comes from Supreme Lord. He is properly and thoroughly educated on the spiritual subject matter, and he never seeks for any material benefit. And what you see ahead in the brackets are the shlokas, verses. So please do read Bhagavad Gita by commentary by Srila Prabhupada, and you can further develop your understanding. We're just giving you a synopsis right now. To come to the conclusion, demigod worship is material. Worship of the Supreme Lord is spiritual. Result of demigod worship are all perishable, but result of devotional service unto Krishna is unlimited and eternal. And that's the difference of worship between of Lord Shri Krishna and Devata. A pure devotee always depends on the Lord and is satisfied with whatever Lord gives. Krishna is imperishable and supreme. He is unborn, infallible. He knows past, present, and future. Krishna himself speaks about this on 24 to 26 verse. And says, Lord cannot be understood, which means Krishna says, I cannot be understood by mental speculation or by simply discussing Vedic scripture. I can only be understood by Bhakti Yoga, beginning with the chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Krishna explains about this in the 24th verse of the 7th chapter. And that is how this chapter ends. Coming to the conclusion of it, in this chapter titled as Show Me God, the chapter begins with how to cultivate faith. Krishna says, Tat Shrinu, hear from me. If you want to find out who is the constructor or who is the owner of this creation, which was created trillions of years ago, how can we acquire knowledge? There are 3 ways for it. Pratyaksha, Anuman, Shabda. Pratyaksha, by seeing. How can we see somebody who existed trillions of years before and who exists beyond the creation? Anuman, what can we actually understand through our hypothesis? And third is Shabda. If we hear, like if you want to know who is our father, hear from mother. Similarly, if we get to know about the Supreme Lord from the Parampara system, then we can know about Supreme Lord as it is. And therefore, Krishna is again and again emphasizing finding a bona fide guru, one who is connected to a bona fide Guru Parampara. When Arjuna heard this, Arjuna thought, my dear Lord, well, if that's the case, if we exist, people say, can you show me God? So what do I say? Krishna say, well, I am present everywhere, Arjuna. That was the second section where Krishna said, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, these are all my energies. In fact, you are my energy, who's trying to exploit the inferior energy that is mine. Matha parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. There is no truth superior than I. I am like this invisible thread holding the pearl necklace together. And because of me, this whole universe is functioning. There are 2 principles that we discussed. How can we see God? Every effect determines a cause. If there is an effect, there must be a cause for it. And second, unseen is proven by the seen. I had given an example of a small child coming back to the house and sees a car key. Immediately remembers his father. That was the second subject matter. Then Arjuna thought, my dear Lord, if you're present everywhere, why there's a wholesale denial of your existence? Krishna says, because of my magic spell. although I do not interfere in the free will of any living entity. Therefore, there are four kinds of people who misuse their free will and do not accept me. They are called as Muda, Naradhama, Maya, Aparat Jnana, Asuram, Bhavamashita. Or there are four kinds of people who actually uses their free will properly and comes and takes my shelter. They are called as Artho, Thati, Jigyasu, and Gyan. And then Arjuna thought, my dear Lord, you have been speaking all about yourself. What about Devatas? And then Lord Shri Krishna spoke about the difference between the Lord, Devatas, and Jivatmas, which means us, and who is the Supreme. In this section, Lord establishes the monotheistic idea. This is a subject matter which requires more detailed discussion. That is not the sum and substance of this topic. But tomorrow, of course, I'm not inviting you for that session, but you can hear the recording later on. Tomorrow, we are discussing from one Upanishad called as Ishopanishad, where we'll be discussing on this same subject matter, where I'll be going in a lot of details of it. So in near future, that recording would be uploaded. If you're interested to know more from the perspective of Upanishad, then you may refer to that. That would be called as Ishopanishad class. But tomorrow we'll be talking about why Lord actually had this system of representatives, demigods, and why there are so many different spiritual paths, any other things related. With that, we come to the conclusion of today's discussion. Tomorrow when we meet, we'll talk about the climax, the end of the movie, the death, the final call, where Lord Shri Krishna speaks about this very important subject matter in 8th chapter, Antakale, how to face death, what happens after. With that, thank you all for being with us for the last 7 days, coming for this evening. Sincerely, all of you. Back to our host, if in case he has, or any one of you have any questions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. This was quite informative. I hope you all enjoyed it and have some questions. I can see few hands raised. So I would request everyone, right, who is going to ask a question, please switch on your camera. It would be good to see your faces and have an interactive session. And then we can unmute you and you can go ahead. So first on my list is Neeraj ji. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hare Krishna Guruji. So I have two questions. So one is out of syllabus, nothing that you have covered in this course. So first one is that you said that we should not worship a demigod. So my question is, will they not feel bad or they will not punish me? So this is my first question. And second question is that, is killing of insects prohibited according to Gita or Garud Puran? For example, killing of a mosquito, which causes a deadly disease called malaria, right? And there can be other insects which can bite you or you can be killed.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Is this your first session or you've been attending it for a while?
I was attending it, yes, via YouTube.
Okay. Because I saw you for the first time. Got it. Okay, so Neeraj has a first question about wouldn't the Devatas be upset? Not at all. So point is not that not to worship. The word worship, I mean, actually in Sanskrit, the word is bhakti, which is loosely translated in English as worship because there's very limited meanings of words in English vocabulary. When the word bhakti, which gets translated in English as worship, this word is only used in Vishnu service. It's never used as bhakti of Ganeshji, bhakti of Durga. No. What is the meaning of bhakti? You may want to call it that you are a bhakt. No problem about it. Who cares about what we think about ourselves? Ultimately, what the laws of the nature and the laws of the Lord matters. Let me give you an example. Now, what is the definition of bhakti first? Bhakti means wherein we are serving the object of or the subject of our bhakti, not that we are demanding from the other person to serve us. In modern context or in the recent history, the subject matter or the context of Devata is like a universal bellboy. You understand bellboy? When you go to a restaurant,
yeah,
you knock and you ring a bell or something and the waiter comes. This is how we treat devatas. We go to a temple, make a prayer, you fulfill this desire, that desire, and then we walk away. What happens in the morning when people get up? They ring a bell to wake up the universal bellboy. Okay, please come here. I have this desire which I want to put forward. So this is such a I mean, I would say limited understanding. This is not bhakti. You know, so bhakti is only used in relation of Vishnu, first of all. So bhakti is used in relation to Vishnu. Then there is a question of devatas getting upset if you don't worship them, because you're not supposed to worship them only according to the scriptures. So what do we do in relation to devatas is we can approach them, we can perform yagyas, which are all given. And the reason why Vedic scriptures talk about doing all these fire sacrifices to please devatas, why Vedic scriptures talk about it? Agnihotra yagya, so many other the yagyas are there, because not everyone is desiring for bhakti. Not everyone is desiring to develop that relationship with the Lord. Many people have desire just to gratify their body and the bodily needs. So just to bring them into a system of where they recognize a superior authority and they begin to subordinate themselves. Therefore, the system of whole worship is being created around devatas. If they do not want to recognize the supremacy of the Supreme Lord, fine, at least they go and bow their head in front of Durga or Ganeshi or Lord Shiva or Brahma, etc., etc., for a helping gradual advancement. All right? I'm just giving a synopsis of a big and a very important subject. Again, you can refer to the tomorrow's session whenever it will be uploaded. That I'll be going in a lot of detail. So that's the first thing. Coming to second point about insects. So what we understand the subject matter is something causes harm to you or threatens for your life, you have a right to defend yourself. Okay? So at yourself, at your level, you can try your best so that you don't have to kill mosquitoes by probably sleeping in a mosquito net or keeping your room neat and clean so mosquitoes do not come. Like you're talking about malaria and all that, that happens when there is a stored water for a long time. So do not create the situation around which forces you to kill them, first thing. But if situation is such, which has been created for whatever reason, and now it could be life-threatening for you, then you can kill to protect yourself. Now, kill means we're not talking about killing human beings, we're talking about insect. All right, there's a huge difference. So for a self-defense, then you can do so. What can be done? At one way, it's an enemy, na? If somebody comes with a sword to come and hit you, are you in self-defense not going to hit him back?
I will.
If you hit him back, according to the law of the state, also you're not culprit. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Now, which mosquito is bringing a malaria virus into your body? You don't know. So with that understanding, try to keep as much as clean possible, sleep in a mosquito net. And if despite that there's a problem, then make a clap. Nitai ko Hari bol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. So I'll take one question from YouTube, Prabhuji. It's Hariji is asking the similar question on demigod worshipping. Can
So
we
I've already
worship?
answered. Is
Can
this
we,
different?
yeah, little different. I mean, little different from a context, like how to approach demigod. So he's asking, can we approach demigod to attain Krishna like gopis worship
Yes.
Katyayana?
Yes, very much. Absolutely. That's the right way, right approach. See, to not worship devatas means to it does not mean to disrespect devatas. Please be okay. They are like our elder brothers. Remember the analogy that I gave? The parents were the Supreme Lord, and we may be in the category of Artharthati or maybe a disobedient son. But who are the obedient son and who are supposed to take care of us are devatas. Remember the analogy? So they are our elder brother and elder sister, which means they are always respectful to us. There is no question of disrespecting devata. That should not be ever there. But what worship means is what I established while giving an answer to me. Yes.
So I would ask now Poonam Mataji to unmute herself and can go through the question.
Yeah, my question is also similar to what is being asked. Like if somebody is following a spiritual life by following any of the devatas, then should they incline themselves towards the Krishna, or will it make
So
any difference?
there are so many examples where actually devatas become extremely pleased only when we begin to worship. There is an example of two brothers, Chandidas and his brother, where I believe Chandidas, he was a worshipper of Shakta or Devi. And he was worshipping her all his life very, very diligently and all that. And he had built a huge garden from where the flowers were only meant for the worship of Devi. And I believe his younger brother, I believe in the sense I'm maybe confused about the name, but let's say for that reason. So the younger brother was a worshipper of Vishnu, both were Brahmanas and had a Shaligram Shila. So one day he saw a very beautiful flower blossoming in the garden of his elder brother, and he asked brother, "Can I take this flower? I would like to offer to my Shaligram Shila." The brother said, "Not at all. Flowers of this garden only meant for the worship of Devi, nothing else." So the younger brother felt disheartened. And then because the flower was so beautiful and he didn't have any flower to offer, he offered that flower within his mind. He did Manasik Puja, where he, with very sincere heart, he didn't want to disobey his elder brother. But with sincere heart, he offered that flower, saying that, "My dear Lord, I don't have anything else, but this is such a beautiful flower that I wish to offer it to you." He offered to the Lord, and after some time, the elder brother came, plucked the same flower, went and offered to his Devi, whom he used to worship. And the same night, the Devi appeared to him, saying that, "I am so pleased by your service." And the Chandidas was confused. "No, I've been worshipping for all this while. What happens so special that you appear today? Because today you offered me Mahaprasad." I said, "What do you mean Mahaprasad?" "Today, for the first time in your worship, you have offered me the Prasad of Lord Vishnu, who is the worshipper Devata of my Devata." Which means here this is refers to Parvati, who he was worshipper of. Parvati is wife of Shiva. So Parvati's Devata is Shiva in that sense. And you have actually offered me prasadam of Devata of my Devata, which means the Supreme God, Vishnu. Therefore, I have become so pleased. This is one example like this. There are many, many examples of real life stories actually. So I don't think so there is any example on the contrary where Devatas have become upset except for one Indra pastime that comes in Krishna Leela, where Indra had become upset. It was not Indra had become upset. Krishna created a situation for Indra to become upset because Indra had become highly egoistic and proud. So Krishna wanted to humble him. That was the point. Second thing about demigod worship, if you take any examples in the history or even the modern time, you will not find any example in relation to worship of Vishnu where the worshippers of Vishnu caused havoc in the society. They became rogue and they destroyed the society. You will not find even a single example in the list of worshippers of Vishnu. Think of the worshippers of Devatas, Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, then you had Jarasandha, just to name few. They were all worshippers of Devatas. And what had happened? They had caused chaos. So I am not saying it's a problem with the Devatas, but it is a give and take relationship. Let me give a very simple example. Let's say you are a mother. If a child comes to you asking for money because he wants to buy a smoke, you probably would give him a slap and purify him of his desire, saying that I'll give you 10 rupees. You go and better buy an ice cream, but don't buy smoke. Yes, but you'll also give him a punishment. So that way he gets rectified. He knows what is right or not. But the same child goes to the shopkeeper and gives him 10 rupees and says, "Give me a cigarette." What do you expect shopkeeper will tell him?
Will
Poonamji, that is what the relationship between Devatas and the Jiva. It's a
But
give and take relationship.
Devatas are in control of Supreme Lord, right?
Devatas are in control of?
Supreme Lord, right?
Devatas are in control of Supreme Lord.
Yeah.
Devatas are under control of Supreme Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah, devtas are under control. Correct. So what's the point?
Then how can they allow to give us more?
Oh, there is no question of allow. I mean, see, we cannot imagine and speculate on things about how nature functions. I mean, why? What is there for them to be attached to you? What is your relationship with them? For them, there are hundreds and thousands of millions and trillions of people.
But same
Now,
is
you
the
may
case.
you may be a mother of 2 kids, so you may have attachment to 2 kids and think about it. But if you imagine you become a prime minister of a country where you have a huge population of 130 crore to look after, then can you go and take care of every one of them in terms of and correct everyone? No, you will make sure whoever follows you rightly, you guide them and take them forward. So there are Brahma praying and saying, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarva Karana Karana. Brahma is saying Lord Vishnu is the greatest, Krishna is the greatest. So why don't you follow? So we don't follow, then who suffer? We suffer. So if you have such a huge audience to gather too, you cannot say, oh, how didn't they come and correct me if I was going wrong? They are giving you the right wisdom. It's your responsibility to follow the right wisdom. And that is a relationship. That's the means of it. So Supreme Father role is only of, the father and mother role is only of Supreme Father. Devatas cannot take the role. So by default, they're detached. It's a give and take relationship as of a customer and a client, as of a businessman and a client. Businessman doesn't care how you use that product, for your good or for your bad. Find the one. All right. Thank you.
So there's one more hand raised by Jetha ji. Jetha, you want to ask a question? You can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, uncle.
Prabhuji, is Lord Ram is also supreme personality of Godhead?
Yes.
Yes. Secondly, there is one common thing. हरि और हर एक दूसरे को उपासित हैं. मतलब भगवान राम शिव जी की पूजा करते थे और शिव जी भगवान राम की पूजा करते थे.
Correct.
ये भी करेक्ट है जो रामचरितमानस में भी लिखा है. और भगवान राम जो है मनुष्य रूप में आए हमें ये सिखाने के लिए कि मनुष्य को कैसे होना चाहिए. तो अब अगर हम शिव जी की पूजा करते हैं, भगवान के चीजों को फॉलो करते हैं, तो उसमें क्या होना चाहिए?
तो few things. भगवान मनुष्य के रूप में है, मतलब मनुष्य के रूप में नहीं है, भगवान का स्वरूप है.
स्वरूप
राम,
मतलब
हाँ,
जैसे राधा पुरुषोत्तम भगवान कहते हैं ना उनको जी.
हाँ, तो एक सोच या गलत धारणा ये है कि भगवान ने मनुष्य का रूप धारण करा, हमारे जैसे नहीं. उन्होंने रूप धारण नहीं करा. उनका जन्म हमारे जैसे जन्म नहीं हुआ. उनका शरीर ये 5 धातु का नहीं बना. वो वैकुंठ से स्वयं वैसे ही शरीर में आए जैसे कृष्ण बताते हैं, जन्म कर्म चमे दिव्यम, मेरा दिव्य है, आपके जैसा नहीं है. वो 4थे अध्याय में क्लियर करा हुआ. नाउ हरि ने हर की पूजा करी, हर ने हरि की पूजा करी, राइट. राम ने शिव जी की पूजा करी, शिव जी ने राम की पूजा करी. अब ये बताइए, ये जो सब्जेक्ट मैटर, पहली बात, ये जो भक्त और भगवान का सब्जेक्ट मैटर है, ये बड़ा ही एक कॉन्फिडेंशियल सब्जेक्ट मैटर होता है. उसको समझने के लिए हमें शास्त्र का ज्ञान बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है. अगर हम भारी दृष्टिकोण से उसको समझेंगे ना, ज्यादातर हम मिस्टेक कर जाएंगे. कई बार प्रश्न पूछा जाता है, राम जी ने युद्ध खत्म होने के बाद और लंका जाने से पहले भी या युद्ध खत्म होने के बाद शिव जी की पूजा करी थी, तो शिव जी की पूजा करी तो शिव जी बड़े हुए. अगर ऐसा है तो कृष्ण अर्जुन के सारथी बने थे तो अर्जुन बड़ा हुआ, आया ना. कृष्ण अर्जुन के सारथी बने तो अर्जुन बड़े हुए. ये भगवान और भक्त का संबंध ऐसा है. जब सुदामा का लक्ष्य तृतीया थी, वो दिन जब सुदामा ब्राह्मण कृष्ण से मिलने के लिए द्वारका में आते तो कृष्ण उसके पैर धोते हैं, तो इसका मतलब तो सुदामा बड़े हुए. तो ये भगवान और भक्त का संबंध ऐसा है, जहां भक्त भगवान की सेवा करना के लिए उत्सुक रहता है, वहीं भगवान भक्त की सेवा करने के लिए इच्छुक रहते हैं, इसी को भक्ति कहा जाता है और यही भक्तों की मधुरता है।
मेरा
तो भगवान राम शिव जी की पूजा कर रहे हो, आराधना कर रहे हो, शिव जी राम की आराधना कर रहे हो, ये वैसे ही है जैसे भगवान कृष्ण अर्जुन के सारथी बनकर उनको युद्ध में उनके लिए सारथी बने हो, और दूसरी तरफ वही अर्जुन कृष्ण से उनको गुरु मानकर उनसे प्रश्न, ये वैसा ही। ऑल राइट अंकल, यू आर म्यूटेड।
भगवान राम की जितनी भी लीलाएं हैं अनुकरणीय है, जैसे उन्होंने माँ बाप का कहना माना या जैसे अपने भाइयों से प्यार किया, ऐसे ये भी तो हमारे लिए अनुकरणीय है। मैं ये कह रहा हूं।
करेक्ट। सो उनको मकसद था मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम। कृष्ण को कहा जाता है लीला पुरुषोत्तम। तो भगवान जब चौथे अध्याय के 7वें 8वें श्लोक में बताते हैं, यही है कि उनके अवतरित होने का एक मकसद होता है, पर्पस होता है। तो राम का पर्पस है मनुष्य को सिखाना मर्यादा का पालन करना कितना महत्वपूर्ण होता है, तो मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम कहा गया है। कृष्ण लीला पुरुषोत्तम मतलब जहां कृष्ण लीला रचकर भक्तों के मन को आकर्षित करते हैं, उनको मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम नहीं कहा जाता, कह भी नहीं सकते। तो इतनी सारी ऐसी लीलाएं रची थी जो केवल भगवान ही रच सकते हैं। 16,108 शादियां, रास लीला करना, बचपन में दूसरों के घर से जाके चोरी करके माखन खाना, जब खुद के घर में सबसे ज्यादा गाय थी, 10 लाख गाय थी नंद महाराज के पास, और ग्वालों के मुखिया थे, तब भी दूसरे के घर से चोरी क्यों? तो एक बार एक गोपन ने कृष्ण से पूछा, हे लाला, तेरी मैया सबसे सर्वश्रेष्ठ गाय के दूध का मक्खन बना के तुझे खिलाती है, फिर भी तू हमारी माँ के घर का माखन चुरा के खाता है। तो लाला ने कहा, अरे भाई, चोरी के माल का स्वाद ही अलग होता है। दिस इज कॉल्ड लीला पुरुषोत्तम। You cannot imagine Lord Ram talking like this. Never, never. So please do not mix up. राम जी की राम की लीला है, कृष्ण की कृष्ण की लीला है। शास्त्र का सही रूप से अध्ययन करिए तो आपको इसके बारे में और ढंग से विस्तार से पता चलेगा। ऑलराइट, थैंक यू अंकल आपके खूबसूरत प्रश्न। ऑलराइट अंकल, ओके, मुझे सुनाई तो नहीं दिया बट फाइन। ओके, हरे कृष्ण। यस,
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So I'm taking few questions from YouTube.
so it's 8:30 now, so you can conclude with 1 or 2 questions. Okay,
Yes, yes.
whatever is remaining we'll discuss tomorrow.
Correct. So Rohit ji is asking, can we worship Krishna for materialistic things in the life?
अकाम सर्व कामो वा मोक्ष काम उदारिधि तीव्रेन भक्ति योगेन यजिता सा पुरुषम। There's one more word after that. Is it? तो अकाम, आपके अंदर कोई भी इच्छा नहीं। अकाम सर्व काम, आपके अंदर सारी भौतिक इच्छा। मोक्ष काम, मोक्ष की इच्छा हो। तीव्रेन भक्ति योगेन, आप जाइए यजते पुरुषम परम। दैट्स द लास्ट लाइन, कृष्ण की भक्ति करिए। ऑलराइट, ये शास्त्र का वर्णन है। नेक्स्ट,
I think last question. What is the difference between expansion and the incarnation of a Lord?
well, there are different kind of, of course, it's a little difficult for me to answer because it's difficult to explain in the English terminology, expansion and incarnation. Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 3rd chapter, there are explanation of this different kind of expansion and incarnation. I'll have to take a look of exactly what Sanskrit word is translated on expansion. And let me put it in a context of Sanskrit here. One is called as avatara. Avatar, I believe, is what is called as incarnation in English. Avatar means where the Lord descends. And where Lord descends himself, that is an avatar. There is another avatar called Shaktya Vesha avatar, where the Lord doesn't incarnate but Lord empowers, or Lord sends his empowered devotee. Like Vyasadeva is said to be a literary incarnation of the Lord, who was empowered to write all the literatures like this. So that is called as Shakti Avishabda. Expansions of the Lord are like from Lord Krishna, Balaramji expand. From Balaramji, Chaturviya, Vasudev, Anirudh, Sankarshan, Pradyumna expand. So that's the point about it. What is the finer distinction between expansion and reincarnation? I'll have to relook, think more on it. I don't want to give an answer which is not exactly according to scriptures. But what I can think of at this point of time is what it seems to me at this point of time, expansion is incarnations are there to fulfill a particular purpose for this creation. And expansion are for the purpose of increasing Lord's pastimes. This is what I would say a guesswork here, but I'll look into it. This is being elaborated in the 3rd chapter of 1st canto. So don't take my word as it is right now. Maybe tomorrow, if time permits, I'll speak. All right. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I think we can conclude now. Thank
All
you.
right. So thank you all for joining it for once again. Hare Krishna. Srila
Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai.
So meet tomorrow at same time, 7 p.m. for another topic. That's the final.